people today would be able to show the kind of courage that the citizens in Hungary did during the Russian invasion?
I think we have shown that sort of courage. I am reminded on this 2 days after, or 3 days after Martin Luther King Day, of men and women marching in the 60s for freedom. That iconic moment in Tiananmen Square where the Chinese fellow with the little briefcase and the white shirt did face down a whole, pile of Chinese tanks. We have never been lacking for courage when we feel like we're really being wronged. Yeah, absolutely. The Hungarians were pretty brave folks, though. There's a really cool clip on YouTube. I think it was in 1956 or 60 in the Summer Olympics, right after shortly after the invasion. The Russians ended up playing the Hungarians in water polo, and the water polo is really a pretty vicious game. And the hate between them was so great that the water was actually kind of tinged with red because they were beating the crap out of each other so much they were drawing blood.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gross.
Why do you
Vicious
think the suicide rates escalated so heavily after the 1960s?
I'm glad you asked me that. What I started to explain to you earlier is, I'm going to draw an analogy here. Let's just say, for example, who else have you talked to teacher-wise?
Mr. Coggins.
Okay, let's just say, for example, Coggins is a sheriff, and he's lazy as a sheriff. And, well, Tony's my friend, I can say that. He knows where I'm going with it, where I'd be going with this. And Tony's a lazy sheriff. And no one ever gets stopped for speeding when Tony's the sheriff because he's too lazy to go out and write speeding tickets. And then I show up because he gets a better job somewhere, and I'm the new sheriff in town, and I'm a real badass when it comes to speeding tickets. I hate it. So I go out and I start giving tickets to everybody who's going 3 miles an hour over the speed limit, 5 miles an hour over the speed limit, and when Sheriff Coggins was in town, you had to be going like 20 over the speed limit. The statistics will now say that speeding is on the rise in our community as a result of me being the new sheriff. Is speeding actually on the rise? No. All that happened is your interpretation of the statistics is on the rise. And I would say the same thing is true with suicide today. I couldn't really say if suicide statistics have gone up or not, but what I can tell you is our definition of what suicide is has certainly changed between now and when I was let's see, did you say in the 60s?
Yeah.
Okay, so if we say the 70s, when I was your age, because we now know that when a one-car accident at 3 o'clock in the morning, when there's no skid marks in front of the concrete berm on the freeway, we now say that's a suicide. And it was a suicide 50 years ago, but we didn't call it a suicide back then. And that's true for a lot of other kinds of self-destructive activities too. We will call a lot of things suicide now that are suicide that we wouldn't have called suicide back then. A couple of weeks ago, there was a firefighter who committed suicide on the freeway. Did you guys hear about that? He said the original thought was he was changing a tire on the freeway. Well, as it turns out, he didn't have a flat. His home life, it came out later, was in complete uproar, and he was having all kinds of marital problems, and he committed suicide by jacking up his car and sort of wandering out into traffic. And so it looked as if it was an accident, but upon further investigation, they determined that it was indeed suicide. His tire wasn't flat. He undid only a couple of the lug nuts before he bothered to jack up the car. I mean, it was a staged auto accident that was actually a suicide. So I don't really know that suicide rates have gone up. Our interpretation of what suicide actually is has changed dramatically.
Why do you think there was military conflict taking place in Bosnia in 1955?
55? I thought we were talking about in the...
95.
Okay,
Sorry.
I was going to say, that one I didn't know about. Religion? It's always about either, there's a really famous book out called Guns, God, and Gold. And it's almost always, wars are almost always a result of one of those things. It's either about wanting more territory, wanting to spread your particular version of God, or about getting more money. And in the case of all those Yugoslavian countries, it was all about one religion wanting to completely annihilate another. They did it in Rwanda with the Hutus and the Tutsis, right? They hacked each other to death, millions of them, with machetes. Of course, the Nazis were kind of noteworthy for that. The Crusades did that. If you didn't believe in that particular version of the Christian God, they would kill you. The Inquisition was pretty good at doing that sort of thing. Do you believe in Christ? No. Okay, crank the rack a little bit more, dislocate all of your body parts a little bit more. Do you now? Yeah, okay, all right. It's almost always about religion, and it was then too.
Makes sense.
Yeah, there's been lots of songs written about it. The Clash have a bunch of great songs about how religion has managed to tear countries and peoples and families apart. You guys U2 fans at all? There's a song. There's one of the early U2 songs was about how brother sister torn apart. Sunday, Bloody Sunday.
I love that song.
That's what it's about.
I don't listen to that song anymore.
Yeah,
I haven't listened to it in forever,
There
Makes
you
me
go.
sad.
it's a sad song.
but I do love it.
Yeah. Bono, word.
Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay.